one seems like it might be interesting. Let's wait a month and see how it turns out. Well, I'd be lying if I didn't expect that to happen. So, how did we end up in this situation? Zack Snyder, James Gunn. You go from a dumpster fire of a universe to a universe already beginning with questionable decisions. I mean, Creature Commandos? Really? So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to give Warner Brothers a little bit of free advice, if they ever wanted any, and I'm going to lay out a whole DC movie universe that I think fans would actually go and enjoy. Gates, come in here. Yeah, what's up? You're going to be playing a DC executive in this video. So as completely uninterested in the source material and wonder why I'm losing money? Yes, exactly like that. Got it. Good. So sit back and enjoy what I think would be a good fan-made DC universe. Now, whenever you're building a universe like this, you're going to need to decide what characters are going to be the main focus. Thankfully, DC already has that taken care of. They have what's called the DC Trinity. That is Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman. They're three most popular and recognizable characters. And since that's already been decided for us, we can also lay down a ground rule for this universe. None of these movies are going to be origin stories, with the exception of one character, and we'll get into that when we reach him. So we're not going to need to see Batman's parents getting murdered or Superman arriving from Krypton. People already know what the stories behind these characters are. The first movie in what I'm going to call Phase 1 is going to be Superman. And in this movie, Superman is going to be battling against Metallo. He's not like a world-ending threat, but he's still enough of a challenge to Superman that he would be good for a movie. This time he would be created by Mercy Graves on behalf of Lex Luthor in secret. Luthor, instead of being like the evil megalomaniac that he's usually portrayed as, could be appearing as a benevolent businessman. And notice I said appearing, because he could just be wanting to have his friends close and his enemies closer. So it builds up Superman's trust in him, and then opens up the door down the line for Luthor to stab him in the back. Something else that you can do in this movie, if you frame it as there's like a mystery behind it, you can also introduce Martian Manhunter in his John Jones alter ego, only as like a little cameo thing. Don't draw attention to him as Martian Manhunter yet. That would be for a later movie. The next movie in this lineup would be Wonder Woman. And this one will be pretty easy. You would get to see more of Themyscira. It would mostly focus on her story there. And she could battle against Eris. Now, Eris is the Greek goddess of discord, and she manipulates emotions and has the ability to ignite wars. This is something that could, at the end of the movie, bring Wonder Woman away from Themyscira and bring her to the wider DC world that's being set up in this universe. Maybe even bring her to Washington, D.C., which is sometimes where she is stationed in the comics and in the other DC universes. And after Wonder Woman, we then come to the third in the DC Trinity. That would be Batman in Batman the Caped Crusader. Now, Batman has a wide variety of rogues in his rogues gallery, and I think that this one would be a good time to break out someone that hasn't been used before, and that would be Roman Sionis, aka Black Mask. Now, Black Mask is sort of like a ruthless mobster type of villain who has a mask of like a skull that he wears. It would be a different type of movie to what Superman and Wonder Woman are doing. And it would be able to show you the grittiness of Gotham City. Now, throughout this movie, you would be introducing a few more characters. By the end of it, you could have Bruce and Dick Grayson working together. You could hint at Batgirl, maybe have like Commissioner Gordon like mention Barbara and like not have her do anything Batgirl-y. You could also introduce Arkham Asylum and Dr. Hugo Strange at the end and hint at the appearance of the Joker. Maybe even have like a post-credit scene with someone walking the halls of Arkham Asylum and hearing like Joker's laugh. After the DC Trinity of movies is over, then you can jump into the lesser known characters. And this is going to seem a little bit strange because I'm going to be jumping into Flash, the fastest man alive. And this is going to be a little bit more of a light-hearted movie to balance out Batman with his more darker aesthetic. And in this movie, Flash would be going up against Captain Cold and the Rogues. It would be a way to introduce people to Flash and his Rogues Gallery. Because for those in the audience who haven't seen like the Flash TV show, then you may not be aware of the variety of villains that he has. So this would be a good entrance point for them without having to dive into an origin story. Now, speaking of origin stories, I am going to have to almost immediately break my rule, and there's a very specific reason for this. Green Lantern and the Lantern Corps is going to be the first appearance of Green Lantern in this universe. And the reason why there needs to be an origin for this character is because there's multiple characters in this universe who hold the title of Green Lantern throughout however long this series of movies takes. And introducing the character of Hal Jordan is going to be almost imperative here. So in this movie, you'll have Hal Jordan getting accustomed to the Lantern's powers, and he'll be fighting alongside Sinestro, who is still a Green Lantern at this point, against the Manhunters. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, the Manhunters are the predecessors to the Green Lanterns, and they were created by the Guardians of the Universe. So, you have that natural rivalry built in there, and you get to also further explore the Lantern Corps. And later on down the line, the Lanterns become much more pivotal to this universe. So, in the case of Green Lantern, I will have to break my origin story rules solely because it needs to happen. After Green Lantern and the Lantern Corps, we would then come to our first crossover movie, and this would be World's Finest. This would be specifically to showcase Bruce, Diana, and Clark. And while those characters are all powerhouses on their own, you're going to bring in the villain of the Joker, because this movie is going to be set mostly in Gotham City. With a villain like the Joker, you're going to automatically pull in an audience, and Joker is a character who could take on all of these heroes while not being like a super-powered being. He still has ways to cause chaos and really make life difficult for these three heroes. So, I feel like this would be a good pairing, and it would be a good way to show off all of these powerhouses in this movie. After World's Finest has been wrapped up, you would then come to your first event movie and the culmination of phase one of this DC universe. And this would be Justice League, bringing together all of the heroes that you have previously established in this series of movies: Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Flash, Green Lantern, and you would have all of them going up against Brainiac. So you'll have your first possible world ending villain and someone who could take on all of these different heroes. Another thing that you could have in this movie is you would have that Luthor would be able to retrieve some of Brainiac's program to further his war against Superman. Now, it doesn't need to be an obvious thing that he gets it. He doesn't need to come out of his benevolent businessman persona yet. And that will just keep the fire brewing for whenever that does happen and he does turn into the Lex Luthor that you do know and love. Or know and hate, I guess. So, that is where you would be at the end of phase one. Now we're going to move on to phase two, where you'll start to introduce some more lesser known characters and give the established characters their sequels. Now, we can get to a definitely lesser known, but still known character because DC has already made this movie in the previous universes, and that would be Shazam. Now, this time, instead of having a smaller villain for Shazam to fight his first time, you're going to instead have Black Adam in this movie. Yeah, not having him in the first movie last time was definitely a problem. So we're going to rectify it with this one and actually get that showdown between these two in this movie. Oh, and by the way, no Rock this time. We don't need any of that rearranging the power balance or whatever this time around. Got it. No Dwayne Johnson. Now, after Shazam, we're going to jump to Superman's family for a moment. And this would be through Supergirl. And in Supergirl's movie, we're going to have her battle the villain Galatea. Now, if you remember the DC animated universe, then you're going to know where this is going to be going. Galatea is sort of based off of Power Girl. And in this universe, we are going to make Galatea become Power Girl, because Galatea is under control of Cadmus and Amanda Waller as a way of trying to take down Superman and Supergirl. Now, after Supergirl defeats her, Galatea will be able to become Power Girl with Superman's help. Ooh! Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Sydney Sweeney? Yeah, my man. Yeah. Sydney Sweeney as Power Girl. $1 billion guaranteed. Once we get that gold mine out of the way, we're going to jump over to Green Arrow, who will then, in his movie, be battling against Deathstroke. So, much like you have with Shazam and Black Adam, you're going to have Green Arrow fighting one of his nemesis with Deathstroke. With 3 hero movies out of the way, we can also jump over to Suicide Squad. Now, I know there's already been 2 interpretations of the Suicide Squad already, but you can have them be going up against a team that's already been introduced in this universe, that being Captain Cold and the Rogues. And you would also be able to pull from the Supergirl movie by having Cadmus be the actual villains of the Suicide Squad movie. So you can have them trying to maybe assassinate corrupt officials in Cadmus. Now, presuming that these lesser known characters' movies maybe take 2, maybe 3 years to come out, then we can start to go back to the DC Trinity and those characters that are more pivotal to the universe as a whole. So the next movie would now be Batman Gotham Knights, with the villains being Two-Face and Catwoman. Now, with Catwoman, you can obviously have that banter between her and Batman and set up that on again, off again romance. Now, you could loop Two-Face into developing Robin a bit more and giving Dick Grayson a bit more character development. You could even loop Two-Face's story in with Robin and have Batman push the importance of his no-killing rule while Robin sort of falters a little bit and has to be pulled away from that murderous edge, which would be setting up a conflict later on. Now, after that, you can then release Wonder Woman, Champion of the Amazons. And the villain of this one would be Felix Faust, who is a sorcerer who is very old. So, this would be a way that you could have Wonder Woman going against these magical powers and also be able to introduce Vixen, maybe by having like her plane crash near Themyscira and like have them welcome her since she is a woman, and have her be like a little side character who helps Wonder Woman battle against Felix Faust. And this would be something that would mainly be set in Washington, D.C. as a way of keeping Wonder Woman in that more open DC universe rather than being closed off in Themyscira. After you finish up Wonder Woman, then we can jump over to Green Lantern, Sinestro Corps. And this is one of the reasons why I thought that it would be best to only allow Green Lantern to be the one to have a somewhat origin-like story. Because you start off in the first movie with Hal Jordan getting taught and fighting alongside Sinestro. In this movie, Sinestro is the villain. Because in the first movie, you were able to show some hints of his more authoritarian tendencies. So, in this one, you pretty much figure out Sinestro is pretty much like a space Hitler. So, this is going to be the big battle between Green Lantern Hal Jordan versus his former mentor, Sinestro. No, and it's something that people would want to see in a Green Lantern movie. Now, while we're also on the topic of big baddies, we're also going to have Superman Phantom Zone. And the reason why it's called Phantom Zone is because this is going to be the introduction of General Zod. And it would also be the movie where Luthor is able to acquire Kryptonian DNA to study. So now, Luthor, still in the background, is able to have Kryptonian DNA, he has Brainiac's program, and he has a general understanding of what Superman's weaknesses are because of Metallo in the first movie. Now all of this is leading up to your second event movie with all of these characters with Justice League Doomsday. And this is where Luthor takes his knife, he stabs Superman in the back. Because this is pretty much Luthor's, his like coming of age supervillain story. So you'll have Lex Luthor, you could also include Vandal Savage, and also Doomsday. So you have all of these things that Lex Luthor is able to build upon to create Doomsday. And with that being said, what would happen in this movie as the big event is this is pretty much going to be the death of Superman. You're going to have that. Now the audience has all this attachment to Superman from these movies, and you're going to see all of these characters from Phase 1 and Phase 2 all of a sudden realize that this hero that they've all been following and looking up to, this guy is now dead. Gone. And what they don't know, but the audience does, is that at the end of the credits, you can have hints of Darkseid and Apocalypse as those things that are going to be coming in Phase 3, which we will get into now. Okay, so this is going to be where it gets dark. Dark? Super dark. Now, to start Phase 3, you need to immediately follow the death of Superman. And with that, I think the best way to do that would be to have Batman Red Death. This is going to have the villains of Joker and Harley Quinn. Harley would be sort of like more on the side character rather than main villain. But you can look at this as Batman versus the Joker mainly. And the reason I say this is because Joker is going to be going for an all-out war against Batman. And there will be several major things happening in this movie, because you can see it as a very, very loose adaptation of The Killing Joke. So Joker will be trying to break Batman, and in doing so, you'll have the crippling of Barbara Gordon in this movie, and you'll also have Dick Grayson quitting the Robin role. He won't be getting killed like Jason Todd, but he will be quitting the Robin role, thereby becoming Nightwing. And by the end of this movie, Batman will be alone. So it'll be setting him up for him being at his lowest point. Now, jumping from one DC Trinity member to another, we have Wonder Woman Revelation. And it's named that because Wonder Woman will be going up against the four horsemen of the apocalypse, namely Ares as War, Baroness Paula von Gunther as Death, Cheetah as Famine, and Giganta as Conquest. This would be a way to showcase Diana going up against pretty much the god of war and villains that he sees as being worthy of helping bring about the end of the world. So it would be a way to showcase Wonder Woman pretty much fighting against the literal apocalypse. Now, leaving the world of Wonder Woman, the next movie to be released would be Green Lantern Legacy. Now, this one, again, will be a little bit different than the previous Green Lantern movie. In this one, Hal Jordan will not appear. Instead, John Stewart will be the Green Lantern, and this will be his origin story. Again, why I said that Green Lantern is the only one who would be getting origin stories. The villains that John Stewart would be going up against would be Atrocitus and the Green Lanterns. And the reason why they would be fighting against John Stewart would be because this is the first appearance of Hawkgirl. And this would be the way to begin the romance with John Stewart, again pulling from the DC animated universe. So John Stewart could get the ring at the same time as Hawkgirl is being pursued by the Red Lanterns. She maybe crash lands on Earth, and she needs to defend herself against the Red Lanterns. Now, there's another thing that could happen in this movie as well, and that is that while Hal Jordan wouldn't be shown in the movie itself, he could appear in a post-credits scene where he opens his eyes to reveal that they are yellow. And if you have read the comics, then you would know that that would be leading into another storyline with the Green Lanterns, which we'll cover in a little bit. But first, we have Zatanna. in all of her fishnet glory. Zatanna's movie would mostly focus on her battle against Morgan Le Fay, and it would also serve to introduce other magical members of the DC universe. So, characters like John Constantine, who she has a history with, and also Jason Blood, also known as Etrigan. This would be mostly set in San Francisco, but it could also be set in like magical realms that they travel to and just further develop the magic systems in this universe. And speaking of magic systems, we will then jump over to Titans. So after Dick Grayson quits the Robin role, he would then get this movie where he would be Nightwing and he could recruit Starfire, Beast Boy, and Cyborg, and they would happen to find Raven while they are on a mission. This would then lead into them being at odds against Trigon, who is Raven's father, and a very powerful demon and villain. By the end of this movie, the Titans would be formed. Okay, pause. Important question since we're talking about Cyborg. Okay, what is it? Does he have a... You know. We are not going down the Snyder route. Anyway, Cyborg talk notwithstanding, we're going to now have the second Green Lantern movie to be released in Phase 3. And that would be Lanterns, Rule of Fear. Notice that this doesn't say Green Lanterns, because this is going to be Jon Stewart fighting against Hal Jordan, specifically a possessed Hal Jordan, because he is under the control of Parallax, pretty much an entity made entirely of fear. Now, this would be the way to firmly establish Jon Stewart as Earth's Green Lantern in this universe. And having this fallen hero story with Hal pretty much starting out as the hero in previous movies and now being the villain because of circumstances that he's not in control of. It's a way of further evolving this universe and pretty much pulling the audience into like this almost hopeless despair, because you're going to want to have that as these movies progress, because you're getting closer to the end of Phase 3, where you want to have that crescendo building. And speaking of crescendo, we're going to have the next movie be Supergirl, Last Child of Krypton. With Superman's death, Supergirl is the last Kryptonian, at least to her knowledge and the audience's knowledge at this point. In this movie, she is going to be going up against Dr. Destiny, a villain who is able to enter your mind and make you experience your greatest nightmares. This is a movie that could heavily emphasize the horror aspect, specifically because of Dr. Destiny's powers and also because of Supergirl wanting desperately to live up to the symbol that's on her chest that her cousin died for, and knowing that she is the last child of Krypton. Now, after Supergirl's very low atmosphere, you're going to go even lower. And this is going to be the first of 3 event movies to close out Phase 3. First one is going to be Justice League Blackest Night. And for those of you who haven't read the comic storyline Blackest Night, there is a lot of death. So the villains in this one are going to be Black Hand and the Black Power Rings. A lot of side characters will die, and the heroes will just barely defeat the Black Lanterns. The Black Lanterns are pretty much zombified heroes. And this is going to be something that is going to kill off a lot of characters. It's going to be a very low point for Phase 3 and pretty much the entirety of all of the phases of this universe of movies. And if you want to push it even lower, include a post-credit scene with Darkseid finally appearing. Because Darkseid is the big bad of the DC universe. And with Superman dead and all of these other characters getting put through the ringer and a lot of them dying due to Black Hand and the Black Power rings, then everyone on Earth and everyone in the universe is going to be pretty much powerless to stop Darkseid. So, this will lead into Justice League Apocalypse. The two villains being Darkseid and Brainiac. Because Brainiac is still alive inside of the program that Lex Luthor had. And Brainiac wants to assimilate all of the knowledge that has been accumulated, and he has similar goals to Darkseid, where he wants to take over the world and pretty much all worlds. And I think at the end of this movie would be good to have Brainiac be betrayed by Darkseid. And Darkseid would then set about on his path to taking over all of the universe and searching for the anti-life equation. Now, good way to end this movie, because there's only one movie left, end Justice League Apocalypse with Batman revealing that it is possible to resurrect Superman. And that will lead into Justice League Reborn. Ultimate villain, Darkseid. And this would be pretty much the rebirth of Superman, the rebirth of a fully powered Justice League, and you'll get all of the heroes fighting against Darkseid and the forces of Apocalypse in an all-out battle to keep Darkseid from finding the anti-life equation and pretty much destroying the entire universe. That, I think, would be the best way to end Phase 3 of the DC Universe. You'll end everything on a high note. The biggest supervillain of all of them is defeated, and the Justice League has saved the day. And there you have it. A full 3-phase movie schedule that I think the fans would actually support. What are your thoughts, Mr. DC Executive? Just one moment, and... What? Seriously? Dude, you know they wouldn't actually approve something that makes sense. They would sooner have Rosie O'Donnell playing Wonder Woman. Yeah, you got a point there. But, what do you guys think? Would you guys actually watch this sort of schedule for DC? Do you think it's better than what they have coming out now? Is it better than the Snyderverse? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you did enjoy this video, please leave a like, comment. If you want to, you can even add some more movies to this little roster here. Let me know all of that down in the comments. If you would, please subscribe, and I will see all of you guys in the next video, if I'm not pulled off to Hollywood because of this fantastic idea. Yeah, that's not happening. Yeah, very unlikely. Peace out.